Enjoy, enjoy the ride. This is a tagline that I put at the bottom of a lot of my emails to my clients. My dad, who's in his mid 80s, went on a journey as a senior executive in the federal government. And I've noticed that in the last 5 years, he says this more often. He seems to want to let me and my siblings know that this matters more than we realize. Enjoy the ride. But how do you do it? I grew up in the 70s, so of course I love James Taylor. And he has a line in one of his songs. It goes like this: everybody say we got to live for today, but don't nobody know how. So these things being of interest to me, of course, it got my attention when I was chatting with my former client and respected colleague, Arleen Thomas, earlier this year. And she said, I'm kind of studying joy. When she said it, I immediately thought, I want to interview her about this on my Leader Site show. So welcome to Leader Site. I'm Eric Thompson. I'm the principal at Thompson Leadership Development, an executive coaching firm. And this is my opportunity to share with you folks the amazing conversations I get to have as part of my job with inspiring people. My mission here is to provide you with insight, foresight, and some really good 2020 hindsight. And I know that we're going to get that today. Welcome, Arleen Thomas.
Thanks, Eric. It's so really great to be here.
Good. So I met Arleen about 15 years ago.
Long time ago.
I think maybe 10 years?
No, 15.
15.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of a newbie in this executive coaching space, working with our good friend, John Ingalls, in a course that Arleen was taking with a bunch of other executives, a year-long journey. And right away, I could tell that Arleen was very serious about the inner journey and the journey of development. Arleen stood right out. She was all in, very open, very introspective, very non-defensive, and also a very dynamic person. I remember, Arleen, you said, Eric and John, I'm really good at taking the hill. And I'm trying to learn to get others to want to come up with me.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yeah, and not kill them on the way up the hill as well. It was a goal. They needed to survive the hill as well.
Survive it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that take the hill quality is something everyone who's worked with you knows about you. So Arleen is a CPA, a certified general management accountant. Did I say that right? The CGMA? Yep. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a mover and shaker in the accounting field for her career. She is part, you know, in one chapter fairly recently, you know, 5 years ago, she was heading up a major initiative to bring the accounting industry into a kind of centralized strategic place as a global community. Mm-hmm. And that was, you know, a significant task that you earned your way to. I think you told me, were you on a partner track in the beginning at a Big Five firm?
I worked for KPMG. Yeah, I stayed there 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
And then you transitioned to this kind of governance of the profession, where you became a senior executive and, you know, still deeply connected. So, and you have chosen to kind of step off of that path to some degree in the last few years, right?
Correct.
And now you're studying joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is interesting to me, and I think interesting to my clients, who many of whom will have this moment, whether it's when they're 85 or when they're 65 or 75 or 55. You know, I've got one client right now, Arleen, who's like, he doesn't want to run businesses anymore. He just wants to invest in businesses. So these kinds of changes happen.
Right.
And for many of them, what they really will be more interested in will be joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me start by asking you just this simple question. What are you learning about joy?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. It's been about 3 years that I've been going through this, and it actually started probably 2 or 3 years before I made the decision to leave. So to some extent, it's been a 5 to 6 year journey. And what I have learned is the importance of understanding my personal values and making sure I am living aligned with those values. And because one of the first things when I decided to leave, I did not have a plan. And I'm a person who really likes certainty. And so for me to actually leave without a plan is pretty amazing to me. But what I did, I spent that first year doing a lot of work on myself, specifically as it related to understanding my values. Really, what were my values stripped of the job? Right? Because the job had been so much a part of who I was. It defined myself in a community that I rarely saw.
Like 365 days a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And the people who lived around me were all like, okay, that's the woman who was always flying, always going somewhere, always doing something. She's the woman with the big job. That's what they would say. They didn't know me at all, but they just knew that I had this quote unquote big job. And all of a sudden you stripped that away and, maybe you're standing a little bit naked all of a sudden. So I thought I better figure out what's important to me now. And I actually did several value inventory type tools that are available. The one from William and Mary was the one that probably was the truest to who I was. And it really helped me understand that, believe it or not, wellness was my number one value. Taking care of myself physically, taking care of my physical environment, my emotional health was actually the most important thing to me, which blew my mind because I'd sat on my rear end for 35 years. Who was to know that that's what was so important to me? And then, other ones were more, I guess wasn't surprised by. Relationships are very important to me. And I learned that from you, Eric, and John. Day one was the importance of establishing relationships and putting credits in banks and all of that work. And so I really doubled down on investing in my friends who had taken the journey with me and stood by me. And so friendships became really important as well. And especially at this point in my life, my friends are moving away, right? Their kids are through high school, their kids are through college, they're moving places. So to invest in those friendships means you get on airplanes and you go to them and you spend time with them and you cry with them when they need to have somebody to lean on, et cetera. And so a lot of that was going on that first year and has taken me through this next couple of years as well.
I want to pause for a second, share a picture you shared with us that sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's see here. Here's Arleen giving a speech to a large audience. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. Friendships.
Yeah, and what struck me about those two pictures was the first one. I'm very much alone, and I think there was a lot of loneliness in the career, especially towards the ends, especially when you're like flying to London, twice a month or twice every 6 weeks. You're on an airplane by yourself a lot. It was very, very lonely. And what I have found, because what happened to me with this wellness bit, I literally was sitting outside at a park just because I could. I had time now, right? I could sit in a park and just be. And a woman came up to me and she said, "Do you play tennis?" I'm like, no, have no desire. And she's like, "I really think you should think about it." So now
Okay.
I play tennis 5 days a week. I'm crazed about tennis. And a
Well,
lot of it is because it's such a, I mean, you need friends, you have to trust people, you have to learn something new at 58 was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
they say that, high level, how do you keep your brain young,
Yeah,
right? This is one of the things we get from the cutting edge science of that is keep learning new stuff.
yeah,
So my guess
yeah,
is you're making an investment in the longevity of your brain. Can
correct.
you tell us a little bit more about this powerful first priority?
The wellness.
Wellness. Wellness. There's a lot, it's a word everybody uses, right? But what
Yeah.
is this wellness? What does it mean?
So wellness to me is probably kind of three-pronged. One of it is my physical surroundings. And so to make sure that that where I'm physically located makes me comfortable, and comfortable is the best word I think I can use on that one. The second is the physicalness, and I mean I'm a person that's always struggled with my weight and literally sat on my rear end for 37 years. But really, so to get out there and appreciate how your body can move and what it can do is amazing to me. I played like 4 hours of tennis the other day, and I thought that you would never see that day for me that I could move at that rate for 4 hours. And I
Would
was
you
fine
say
when
that
it's done.
your relationship to your body is
Yeah.
different?
Oh, very much so.
And
Very much so.
there's more wellness in that relationship?
Yeah.
Body feels better?
Yeah. So when I took care of myself, I was working, it was so I could work. So I was a big person to work out when I landed in London in order to force my body to go to a new time zone. So that was the reason I worked out, was the end
Yeah,
result was so I could work. Now the end result is I want to do this so I can be healthier longer in my life.
yeah.
I hope I have 30 years left, and I want to be as healthy through those 30 years as I possibly can be.
Does it feel different to be in your body now?
Yeah, my energy level is substantially higher than it ever was before. And I was pretty energetic before.
Tell anything else. How else would you describe it? So hot, so difference in energy level. What else?
Um, just your desire to want to be out and meeting new people and exchanging with them, investing in them, growing in them, and having the energy to do that, I think is a huge part of it as well.
Like more friendly? Would you say or no?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I'm interested in joy, Arleen, and I know there's descriptions of people who feel tremendous joy at just being alive.
Mhm.
And I think part of it is a physical experience in their bodies,
Right. Correct.
that it feels like a joy to be living in their body.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think, I guess technically, don't they call those the endorphins or something? There's some technical term that when you work out, those things get released. And so
Yeah.
therefore you have, you just feel very buoyant. And
Buoyant's a good word,
I never experienced those before.
but you do now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So you actually seemed pretty buoyant 15 years ago, Arleen.
Yeah.
You
And
were
I
kind
did.
of bubbly and energetic,
Yeah.
but you didn't feel buoyant.
No, I did, but well, part of my wellness journey has really been to understand why I worked so hard. What was going on there? Why was I so motivated to get on the plane? And
Yeah.
I was that person that my boss would say jump, and I would say how high. Right? That's who I was. And you refer to it as about taking the hill. I mean, there was no hill that I wasn't going to take. And if you were very instrumental in focusing me on that, and John was too, and also another executive coach I had towards the end named Lucy Close really was like, you need to understand what's going on with that. And so when I really looked at it, using a lot of good therapy, by the way, I realized that the energy and the motivation was actually coming from recognition.
Mm.
my desire for recognition was really substantial.
Mm.
And my journey has really helped me understand that I actually had to let go of recognition and then go through the hurt and the healing that comes with that when you let go of such a big strength. I mean, in Strength Finders, recognition is my number one strength. I mean, that's how big it is for me, or was for me.
Yeah.
And so it was that, and it motivated and propelled me. And all of a sudden you start to think about it differently and go, wait, that could actually turn and hurt me if I don't manage it. And so then as I turned it off, that's when I saw the hurt. That's when I had to go through the healing. And then I was able to leave. And I actually do think I had to go through that journey to get to joy.
Whoa. I am glad we have that on tape.
I had to
I'll
go
tell
through
you,
that.
Arleen, I know a number of founder owners who are in their 90s who have not let go
Yeah.
of their attachment to recognition.
Yeah.
And they're sort of clinging to it with white knuckles, kind of in the way of the successor generation in their family business.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, just I honor you for having the flexibility to do what you just described.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, a kind of a letting go of maybe a sort of a sense of identity.
Yeah.
And a sense of status, but then finding this other thing on the other side of it, this joy.
Yeah.
Like, when did the joy come in?
That's a good question. When did the joy come in?
Wait, can I just even more basic? Are you more joyful?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No hesitation.
Yeah. Yeah. No hesitation.
How much more?
Oh, like I feel like 100%. I mean, the last couple of years, and I'm just going to be transparent. I mean, my departure wasn't necessary. It was very awkward. Let me put it that way. It was very awkward.
Yeah.
And even in preparing for this, looking back 3 years later, there's still, some difficult feelings that come from it. Yeah. But I had to go through that journey. I had to let that all go in order to, be able to. I wake up every morning going, this is going to be a great day. And it's not like I have a zillion things to do, but I have freedom to do the things that I want to do. So I can play tennis in the morning. I love working for not-for-profits that are struggling, and I can give that gift. I love being with my family. There was something almost divine in all of this, because both of our children struggled in their transition to college. Mm-hmm. And my going through this journey actually coincided with me being able to be present with them as they were probably going through easily the most difficult, challenging things in their lives. And even though those were very hard, Eric, to some extent, what joy that I could be there. I mean, that in and of itself is just tremendous, and the best gift I could have, or I could receive.
It makes sense to me, Arleen. I have this sense that you will never regret that you could do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom's a wonderful
thing. I guess T.S. Eliot made this famous comment that most men live lives of quiet desperation. And I think it is, a pervasive disease among wealthy America.
Yeah.
And we are actually a little bit clueless, many of us, about what would it be like to live where you actually wake up the way you just described, where you're like, hey, I feel good about this day.
Yeah.
Kind of almost doesn't matter what happens.
Right.
The feeling of pleasure in the day is somehow intrinsic to your being. It's rooted in who you are, maybe more than what you're going to accomplish today.
Well, yeah, because I have a dear friend who has taken a similar kind of a journey, and she talked to me many times about, we're in our stages where we are thriving, we are not striving. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. We're thriving. We're doing we're doing good work on how we, and in the manner in which we want to do it. We're taking care of ourselves, but we're not chasing anything. There's nothing to be chased anymore. And that's, boy, what a relief.
Here's a 2020 hindsight question. So when you look back from this place you're at now, at the other chapter, the chapter that you allowed to go away, because you didn't have to do this. You could have jumped right back on the horse.
Yeah, I could have stayed.
What would you say to someone who's living there? What would you say to Arleen, you know, who's there 7 years ago, and you could whisper her something to her now about what advice would you give her? About, I guess what I'm getting is, when you're in it, you're in the profession.
Yeah.
What do you know now about being in it that you would have said to her?
Well, I guess why I'm struggling a little bit is because I would tell you people did say it to me, right? I mean, I remember having dinner with you, and you said to me, social drops are a part of the flow of life.
Drops in social status.
Yes, drops in social status are parts of
Most humans.
Yeah.
Up and down, up and down. Yep.
Right. And so the key is, as you're going through it, to find the opportunities. And and that to me was like a wake up call. I went, why am I worried about the fact that I'm on this, this? Just figure out what the opportunities are. And it totally changed my perspective. Lucy, for probably 3 or 4 years before I left, was saying, you need recognition could destroy you. You need to take control of it. You need to take control of it. And so, and I think those were exactly the right things I needed to hear. So I'm glad.
I want to run something by. Go ahead.
I said it just took me a while to actually let it sink in.
I want to run something by you and see what you think of this. So my thought is that people could be engaged in a very dynamic endeavor, a dynamic career, very demanding job of all different types, nonprofit, for-profit, all sorts of types. And they could feel in that kind of free of attachment to their status. This is probably possible. There's probably people who do this, where they feel a tremendous mission-driven energy, and they'd actually could handle a status drop pretty well. I think this would be pretty rare. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that?
I have known people throughout my career that did handle the status drop with grace. No question about that. I could name you 2 or 3 people. I think, and I'm a little envious of them, by the way, because they did it with such grace. However, when I peeled back the onion to understand where the recognition came from, my family foundation was such that, the recognition that I received from my employer was kind of offset the fact that there wasn't a lot of recognition in my family. So back to your Boehm theory, I mean, there was some really, there was cracks in the family foundation, right? And so that's why I am so glad that we have all had a chance to work together, because we were able to see, you guys helped me see those cracks. I remember a dinner we had at Woodcliff many years ago with John. And I mean, I walked away going, okay, they have shown me cracks in my foundation I didn't know that was there. And that was really powerful to me. So, and I guess I think we all have cracks in our foundation. So here's to the person who can make the status drop and do it well. But I think a lot of us, it'll come back and bite us.
It's very meaningful. Thank you, for bringing back those memories, good memories. And it's nice to know that I helped in some small way. And I know John did a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, she is really well prepared for aging. Because, for a lot of people, starting to lose, their hair color, their level of energy, maybe for some people, my mom right now has lost a piece of her memory or short-term memory. And I think that can generate different levels of distress in people.
Right.
And people who are more grounded in something like this are going to have a more joyful ride through
Right.
the inevitable status drop that we are all going to die.
The ultimate status drop. No, I think that's fair, because I mean, I do watch other colleagues of mine and friends, and as you get into those late 50s, early 60s, there's a lot of, and maybe the words aren't used, but you kind of, there's the pasture, can you please go quietly? And I do think there is a lot to be said for doing some really good work in order to make that ride and take it successfully.
So shortly, we're going to give our audience, and it's nice to see a bunch of old friends and
Yes, it is.
and some new friends here. Hello, Chris McMasters. Haven't seen you in a while. It's great to see you here. And also, I just want to acknowledge two people on this call, Craig Mills and Mike Decker, who were, because of you, Arleen, I got to meet Mike Decker and Craig Mills, who've been a very important part of my journey. Wonderful clients, Mike, who runs the team that produces the CPA exam, and Craig, who has had a great run as head of test development for the National Board of Medical Examiners. So in a minute, we'll give people a chance to reflect on some of these insights that you've been sharing in a small group.
Great.
Anything else you want to put in about joy? What else, Arleen? What else are you learning about joy?
Well, the other thing I learned about joy is that you actually can approach this time of your life exactly the same way you approached and managed your career. And it's not, it's not like I have a strategic plan, but I do have, a stated mission that I want to stay healthy, and that I want to do good with other not-for-profits, et cetera. And I do set, goals every quarter. I'm that geeky person, and I have the to-do list. And so I guess I would just share that I find it kind of interesting that all of the tools that we use to manage our career, we can manage this time of our lives as well. So it's not wasted time, right? Because the last thing I wanted was this 20 to 30 years of my life to be wasted or feel like it was on pause. We worked hard in order to live this life to our fullest. So let's make sure I live it to my fullest. And that's what I'm doing. I even have a board of directors. I know this is really geeky, but I have a board of directors of 5 women who have different talents and skills and perspectives that just keep me focused and tell me what I don't want to hear. And that's a blessing.
Wow. That's very interesting. So you're really actively managing this joy process using the same tools. Yeah.
Not surprising. If you know me, you're not surprised.
I think it's awesome. Before the breakout, I want to share a few things. One is, let's take a minute to celebrate Dr. King. It's the day after his birthday. Happy birthday, Dr. King. I just want to say that I believe Martin Luther King is a great American founding father, perhaps our most spiritual founding father. If you listen to his talks on recording, which are readily available on audiobooks, you remember that he was a preacher, and he had a lot of spirituality was absolutely essential, and love to his impact. And also, I think he's the founding father who may most fully represent the wisdom of Bowen leadership theory. And I use this quote in my course: if a king attempts to master his ministers without first mastering himself. Is that resonating, Arleen, to Arleen's
very much
story?
so.
He'll fail helplessly, the master of neither self nor ministers. But if first of all he conquers the self as though it were a country, his attempts to master his ministers and his enemies will not be in vain. That comes from the Mahabharata, which was an influence on King through Gandhi. And I also want to mention that I'm really excited that in a few weeks, I'm going to be interviewing another amazing guy. Arleen, you love this man, Ted Castle. The skinny is, he was in Vermont learning how to make frozen cookie dough when the Ben and Jerry's cookie dough ice cream product went crazy. So he was in the place, Rhino Foods was just beginning, and he had to figure out how to make an enormous amount of frozen cookie dough really, really fast. And he pulled it off, and now you've all eaten his cookie dough, because the great majority of the cookie dough that is produced and that is eaten in the world is produced by Rhino Foods. And Ted is an amazing guy who also has this real passion for how the business can have a really positive impact on the people who work there and the community. So doing well by doing good, the cookie dough story is coming up here. It's also really funny. And I just wanted to share one more thing about joy. So this is on the right, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the current Surgeon General. And he has listed happiness as one of the top priorities of the Surgeon General's office, which is responsible for the health of Americans. And the reason he has focused on this priority of happiness is because there's a whole bunch of lines of research that all converge on the idea that happiness impacts all these other downstream health issues, not just depression, physical health issues, autoimmune, and even more concrete diseases like cancer. So he's really focused on happiness, particularly on kids. And I think he would love what you've been talking about, Arleen. We all need to learn more about happiness. And I also want to mention Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. They have an amazing culture on this basketball team, the Golden State Warriors, that's won a few championships. And one of their principles is they play with joy. So it's like a core principle of how they want to operate as a team is to do what you're doing, is keep joy on the menu as they compete in this very high stakes, only one team wins situation. So I don't know, they think we Americans are kind of interested in joy. I'm just going to say too, there's a YouTube channel. You can watch these recordings for free. This recording will be on there soon. This was an amazing one, Arleen. If you haven't seen this, you're going to just want to hug Mary Powell. You guys are cut from the same cloth. She's currently the CEO of one of the largest solar companies in the world, Sunrun. And I also loved this one with my dear friend, Nord Brew, who founded Brugger's Bagels. Very wise person. These are there on the YouTube channel. All right, now I am going to give you guys a breakout opportunity. So, it's a little bit less than 10 minutes. I'm going to let the app set these rooms up. Bear with me here. Yeah, so I'm going to set this up to go for 7 minutes. And the purpose here is, you're a bunch of wise people. I think people learn a lot and they integrate knowledge by being able to talk about it together. So don't worry too much about introductions. If one of you would just start off in your small group and just start saying, hey, here's what Arleen's got me thinking about. And just speak for a few minutes and then pass the baton. Somebody else will talk. It'll fly by and we will, at the end of it, welcome you back and have a more interaction between you and Arleen. All right, here we go. Welcome back. I think the app is just being a little bit slow right now. There we go. Hey, welcome back, Arleen. How was your breakout? You're muted.
Our breakout was really great, and including Craig's new puppy who wanted to go outside and pee. No, but seriously,
what-
Eric, we actually touched on something that I hadn't brought up, which was one of my values is around financial stability, and how important that is to me. And through this work, I've come to appreciate my financial stability is about funding my other values. And Craig was talking about, he shared that he has retired, and part of his journey was realizing that he had enough and that he could accept the financial stability he had and give himself the freedom to now live the life he wants to live. And I do think that that is a very important piece of this puzzle as well.
Yeah, I think it's really true that people can emphasize wellness and joy more, even while they're taking the hills.
Mm-hmm.
But for many people, the stepping away from work and accepting what you just described is the beginning of a big pivot in that direction for many people. That's I think it's sort of a natural cycle. So I would love to welcome any of you who've been on this in the discussion to share something that you heard that you thought was inspiring, either in your small group or in Arleen's comments, or ask Arleen a question, something you're curious about her joy research. So Steve Legler, you want to get us started?
Yeah, Arleen, we were talking in our group about your board of directors. And I mentioned that I only know one other person who has a board of directors, and it's a woman. And I was talking about the fact that maybe most guys wouldn't want to go there. And then we morphed into, well, you know, I know people who have a coach for this and a therapist for that and an old friend for this, and that's more of a one-on-one. And then other people get together with the same group of friends that they can all lean on. So they're all each other's board of directors. So what is yours? Do you really have a group that comes together all together just to talk about you, or is it some hybrid of the other ones I've talked about?
It would be a hybrid. In other words, I would meet with them individually, but I selected them for specific purposes. Like one is very creative. I'm not a creative person. I'm analytical. Lori's my creative person. Andrea is my tough love person. And it kind of goes around that circle, if you will. But the key for me was sitting down with each of them and having a conversation that says, you have my permission to tell me things I don't want to hear. Because that to me was the key, was I needed to be in a community that could be honest and be real with me. Because generally speaking, my experience had been with just that people can't have those challenging, difficult conversations that, Eric, you taught us how to do. Generally, people don't do that, especially in friendships. And I needed that.
Who else? Anybody else want to get in on this discussion? What do you know about joy and having more joy?
So Eric, I used to work for Arleen, so I would typically take 4 or 5 pages of notes when I worked for her, and I found myself taking 4 or 5 pages of notes, and I don't work for her anymore. So some things never change. You know, I really love the concept of learning new things, and also the concept of, you know, I think many of us on the call are late 50s or around that area, and getting ready for sort of the next vision and the next thing that's coming along. And I don't know if it's the training that I've done with Bowen and working with you, Eric, and just listening to Arleen, but like I'm loving life. Like I just got promoted. I am busier than ever, but I'm playing more pickleball. I'm playing more golf, spending more time with family. I don't have a free moment, but it's all awesome. And I think one of the things that I've left behind is a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's where my joy comes in. I'm willing to just let it go, because it's such a downer, especially today politically and the like. I just focus on sort of what's coming. And I got a granddaughter that's going to be born in a week or two. And I told my son I'm going to learn to play guitar with her when I retire. So she'll probably kick my rear end and be awesome, and I'll probably stink, but it's probably something we can do together and something I'll look forward to. So, and I gotta be able to learn something new, and that's one thing I'm going to struggle with, but I want to do it.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I've been I've met some people in the last 5 years who I think have the highest levels of sustained day-to-day joy of anyone I've ever met. And they're great mentoring relationships for me and learning from them. And one of them is somebody who's had a very deep journey with transcendental meditation. So it's one of my pathways to accessing more joy.
Yeah.
And it's in this very, very simple silence, quietness. There's actually a lot of joy in there. But one of the things that this friend of mine says is that he just asserts that it really is possible for humans to have a lot more joy than they have. And that's just encouraging to me, just to even recognize that's possible. There's something in the chat here. Congratulations, Mike, from Melissa Billings. Yeah,
So,
inspiring to hear
Eric,
it.
back to Mike's point. I mean, Mike, the letting go of the negativity. I mean, and that to me was my letting go of recognition, right? I mean, and they were such important traits of ours that we have to let go. And to me, I just keep coming back to the importance of really understanding that and really understanding what is that thing that actually probably has propelled you to your success, but is actually the thing that's going to stop you from getting to joy. And that's a tough look inside. That's tough.
Yeah, the decrease in negative thoughts that Mike mentioned, that's what made me think of this mentor of mine, because he said at a certain point, he forgot how to worry.
Yeah.
Eric, isn't this all about, I mean, what we're talking about now is
That was pretty substantial. Forgot how to worry.
letting go of the negativity, forgetting how to worry. I mean, it's almost as if joy isn't something we got to go get. It's we got to release it, or we got to clear off some of the other stuff so that it can blossom. I don't know the metaphor that's going to come to me as soon as this call ends, but there's something there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, part of it comes with age, where I'm going to stop worrying about what other people think about me, how I look, how I dress, all that. And when you let go of that, there's space for other things. Like, you know what, I actually like doing this thing and I don't care what everybody else thinks. I'm going to go do this thing, you know, that brings me happiness. The other thing I wanted to say, Arleen, besides hi, but is I like the fact that you had a very structured work life, and you have kind of taken that structure, relaxed it a little bit, but your new job is finding the things that make you happy.
Right.
And I'm a few years behind you, where I'm thinking about retirement in a few years. And I'm like, is everything going to fall apart? If I retire, what am I going to do with my day? But if you keep that structure and you just apply your energies to something that gives you that joy, I love that idea, because it kind of went click. Oh, that's what I can do with my time. Yeah.
And so I still have my CPA license, so I still have to get 40 hours of CPE. And it's amazing how easy it is to get CPE in this area of wellness and leadership and growth. And so I just take all of I do enough A&A to keep myself responsible, but the rest of it I use. So I'm actually taking courses that help me, continue to develop those skills that were very helpful to me in my career and are now helping me during this new season as well. So it's good. And there's also a lot of great books out there, right, that you can read as well.
Like what? What's one of your favorite joy books?
Well, I haven't gotten to joy yet with this one, but Atomic Habits has been really, is once again, it goes to the notion that Steve kind of took us down the path, that once you figure out how to develop good habits and get rid of bad habits, there's freedom there, and freedom means joy. So he doesn't necessarily make that circle in his book about joy, but it is all about how to make good habits better and get rid of bad habits. And it's
who's the writer again? Who's the writer? Who is the writer again?
James Clear. I just re-listened to it for the second time.
James Clear, and the book is called what?
Atomic Habits.
Oh,
Atomic
Atomic
Clear.
Habits. Thank you.
Yeah.
Arleen, I have another question to ask you, which is just to invite you to say anything more about describing this more joyful state that you find yourself in. What are its features? What are its characteristics?
So truly, it's a lot about freedom. It's a lot about freedom. And so like my average day is I get up and I get my house ready for the day, which actually makes me feel great, because then my physical environment is aligned with my values, right? And then I spend the morning playing tennis and developing relationships. And then I spend the afternoon generally working on some project, which, you know, gives you that sense of planning and accomplishment and fulfillment. Then it kind of slides into 4 o'clock where you start to read a book and then gather for dinner.
So you said freedom. Does that mean that you feel a greater sense of freedom to do what you want to do hour to hour? Is that what you're saying about freedom?
Exactly. Nobody's telling me what to do. I do what I need to do for me. And that is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous amount of freedom.
Mhm.
So that I hope I answered your question, but that's what it is for me.
Yeah, expanded sense of freedom.
Yeah,
that you
very
both have
much.
to say.
Yeah.
Arleen, this is Chris.
Hi.
Hi, it's good to see your smiling face and see you smiling. That's wonderful. So
Yeah,
it sounds like you're still kind of structured. Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm a structured person. I think if you took structure away from me, I think I'd flounder. And so yes, I would say my first year I didn't have a lot of structure, but yet I did, because I was flying. That was pre-COVID, right? So I could fly and go see people, and it was very much of a year of healing. But once that period kind of settled in, and to be honest, I really recognized I wasn't going to go back to work. That wasn't something I had any desire to do at all. That nothing could tempt me to go back to work, because by then I realized my freedom was so important to me. Then I just started to develop the structure, and especially going through COVID, I needed structure going through COVID.
Right. That's
What are you
interesting.
wondering about that, Chris? This structure question.
I probably could use a little more structure in what I'm doing. I mean, I'm still kind of random in terms of taking on engagements and determining how much I want to work and how much I don't want to work. And so I like the idea that she's been, and it's not surprising to me at all that Arleen would do this, but that she's been so thoughtful in how she's approached it and the structure that she's put around it. And the board of directors thing, to me, is probably the most eye-opening in a lot of ways. The accountability that you've put in connection with what you've done, which can you talk any more about what kind of advice do they give you?
Oh,
give me an example or something of a couple things.
So the world that I lived in, or the environment that I was in, became my normal, right? This recognition was normal, as an example. And so Andrea would be a person that would say, why do you need that recognition? Why does that atta girl mean something to you? Well, when you're living in an environment where atta girls were currency, right? That's everybody wanted the atta girls or the atta boys. And you sat there and had a friend who said, why is that the currency? I mean, it would stop me dead in my tracks.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so and Andrea has always been a stay-at-home mom, but her ability to be perspective and look at me and say, what's that feeding you, was huge. So that would be an example. Lori would be one that she always was saying, you don't understand how intimidating you are to people and to your friends. And I'd go, why? I don't get it. But I needed to hear that. And I get it now. I understand. But it was a tough message to hear.
Good thoughts.
How did it help you to learn how you were, how you were intimidating, but you didn't know it? How'd that help you?
It helped me most with my kids, right? Because all of a sudden I was like, wait, I'm mom. I'm not intimidating. And they're like, she's like, yeah, you are. So, and I remember John Ingalls telling me, have you ever, John actually probably said that with me originally, said, do you ever think about how intimidating you are to your kids? And like, you need to lighten up a little bit. I'm like, oh, so it helped me lighten up.
I recently had a chat with my 19-year-old freshman in college, and it was a nice chat. And I explained to her how she was a much better student in high school than I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it surprised her.
Yeah.
Because she
Yeah.
probably feels a little bit intimidated by me. And it was
Yeah.
just it was a good moment, I think,
Yeah.
between us, where she was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Kind of, I'm doing okay. And I maybe I don't need to, maybe I can let go of this like dad approval thing a little bit here.
I really can't even begin to imagine the pressure college kids are under these days. I really can't get my head around it because it's so different than when I went to school. And I have learned really to apply a lot of the things that we've talked about, right? To be vulnerable with them. I mean, they're 19 and 21 now. I can be vulnerable. I mean, I can tell them when I cry. I can tell them that, this is what happened to me and this is how it hurt and this is how I've gone through it. And I think all those things are really powerful right now.
Maybe this is a beautiful note to end on, Arleen. Just thanks for sharing your journey and this pay it forward to the generation down, the kids. And I have no doubt that in many, many ways, your gift for being able to pivot and make the most of this time and prioritize wellness and joy is going to have all kinds of very, very positive impacts on them and probably their children and their children's children.
Well, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me in my life as well, because you have given me so much counseling and advice. And for those of you that I've worked with over the years, we had some great memories, people, and some great successes. We did.
Definitely.
So thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.